Hello everyone and welcome to the HvH School. Now this is the first episode of I don't know how many are gonna come, but essentially in this little series I want to give you guys a little bit of a basics, but also we're gonna go through some in-depth situation, and I hope to help newcomers and even veterans to improve their gameplay a little bit after they've watched a couple of these series. Now, it's important to understand that this series focuses on official Valve HvH, as in Wingman, but you can also most probably apply this to normal matchmaking. But this definitely does not cover community HvH servers. Now, my win rate seems to hover around 85 to 90% in Wingman, so I hope I can at least teach you guys something to pull that down a little bit if you stream snipe me. Regardless of what you hear in this video, you will still have to get the gameplay experience yourself. So even after watching this and the other videos, you will have to go out and explore your cheat strength, maps you like, guns you like, and your cheat does well with. So this is not just you watch the video and you are a god. In order to be somewhat decent, you have to understand the game and utilize your knowledge to dominate the competition. Generally speaking, having a lower latency to the server will always be in your favor, so aiming for close servers will greatly benefit you. Having a teammate who is at least as competent as you is also a great addition and should increase your win chance after a few games of training together. While we are talking about teammates, even though you both have cheats, communication can help a lot and help a tunnel visioning teammate in clutch situations. Okay, let's talk about some basics that I noticed are getting ignored by both newcomers and even veterans. For example, your health points. Very few weapons can one-shot body shot you while having armor, and that's basically only the orb. So in some situations, sacrificing some health in order to do damage can pay off. But it can also backfire if later in the same round you are facing the second guy who is at full HP still because your teammate wasn't capable of doing damage to that person. Another important topic is know your objective. Are you counter-terrorist? Are you terrorist? Why are you constantly picking enemies when they are nowhere near to being a threat to the objective? Your enemies will start making mistakes when under time pressure, which usually plays greatly into your hands, such as them full speed running, jumping around, trying to get on side, or trying to push you from an ineffective angle. So just relax and wait till they make a mistake. Now that we understand that health points can play an important role and waiting for a mistake is quite important too, we also need to talk about peeking. And it's important to understand how vaults work. I think 3Clicks Philip made a video covering this a while ago, but let's assume you are further away from the vault than your enemy. Then you should basically always be able to shoot before him. This of course depends on your hit chance, minimum damage, multi-point and other stuff, but we're gonna talk about that at a later stage. But at the same time, when you are literally hugging the wall, you could bait a low damage shot into your pelvis and then return a lot of damage at their own shot, if your cheat is capable of doing that of course. So whether you want to believe it or not, there is no perfect cheat that does everything well. So depending on which cheat you're using, you should try to play for its strength and adapt your playstyle according to what the cheat can do best, while taking into account what you believe the enemy's cheat is capable of doing. So here's a list of what I think is important to myself. For example, Skeet is really good with save point. Like if you have 4 save point on, the chance of you missing is pretty damn low. While for example, One Tap, Never Lose or Aimware, they're not so good with save point. Like for example, in Never Lose I have save point on head and I'm still missing head due to desync or something, which doesn't make sense. One Tap, for example, is really good at on-shotting, and I'm pretty sure everyone knows that already. But Never Lose, Aimware, Skeet, they're not so good at on-shotting. They do it, but they miss a lot. Aimware, for example, is great at body aiming. With Aimware you can just shoot at the very tiny edge of the body and it's still gonna hit. But if you try to shoot at head, you basically just never hit anything. Never Lose seems to be a middle ground of Skeet and One Tap, where it's sometimes on shots, and the save point works sometimes, but sometimes it just misses for unknown reasons. But we will go over these things, what all they mean, and how they can be utilized further down the road of this series. Now, if I have to tell you what an end aim is, you might be, a little bit too much of a newcomer. But I'll sum it up. Essentially, you have an aimbot that's trying to shoot at your head, and you do something that tries to counter that. Now, there's a few different end aims, and the most common ones are freestand, backwards or at target, manual, that is basically like sideways on key, like you press a button and it goes left, right, or something. One Tap, for example, has this manual enter in direction on mouse, where you press a button, then you move your mouse left or right, and the head is gonna go in that direction. Then there's a bunch of cheaters, which basically, for example, you are backwards, it cheaters left, right a little bit, which probably is supposed to confuse the resolver. Then you have the cheater forward, backwards, which keeps your head, your reel or whatever, it's trying to simulate that the fake is to the left, for example, and it just cheaters back and forth, and it constantly looks like your head is on the left, which is also probably to confuse resolvers. And then there is backwards with anti-brute force, or forward with anti-brute force. All of them are situational, and one does better than another in certain situation. The general rule of thumb that I always say on stream is don't be sideways when your head is hittable. Even if the enemy is using Osiris, he will rip your head off. Now, freestanding was really good back in the old fake angle days, where you would effectively put your head behind the wall and your fake somewhere else, and then it would look like your head is out or something like that, and people would start shooting your head, which is not actually there. But in the current situation of how fake angles work, or desync, people sometimes say, yeah, they love freestanding. Some of them say they hate it. The majority actually hates it. Technically speaking, freestand is a good idea to hide your head, but the execution is pretty shit, and you're actually gonna get headshotted quite a lot. Firstly, because freestanding does not account for backtrack, so if you're getting rushed, at first the head might be in a safe spot, but as the guy closes the angle, all of a sudden your head is essentially sideways for him. And then we go back to don't be sideways when your head is hittable. The freestanding might go backwards at some point, but due to backtrack, you're just gonna get backtrack to where your head was sideways. Freestanding sometimes also gets confused when there's multiple people approaching you from different angles. Then it basically just doesn't know where to go, so to say, and it just puts your head out in the open for one guy, and then you're sideways again and you're dead. Freestand also sometimes thinks that putting your head sideways is smarter than putting your head backwards. I have this example here that pretty much illustrates exactly what I mean here. This behavior is not just an exclusive to Never Lose, I also have the same with Skeet, and I don't even know if One Tap has freestand. If you really wanted to use freestand, I guess the best option would be to have it on like a key. I think Skeet has this option where you can bind a key to freestand, and then you toggle it, or you just press the button all the time if you feel like it. My personal favorite is backwards or at target. It's basically the overall best, I would say. Like, if you don't want to switch around all the time, backwards is my absolute favorite, because it has the best chance for them to actually miss your head. Some people use a mixture of backwards and manual, where they're constantly backwards, except for when they press the button, and then they are sideways. But that again comes with the downside of being sideways eventually if you rush out, or if the guy pushes you. So you might die there again. So I don't personally like that. Regarding all the cheater options that there are, I tried a few where you, for example, are backwards and you're cheatering just a couple degrees left, right. Then you have the one that goes back and forth. And personally, I just can't see the benefit. It just has more downsides than upsides for me. So your mileage may vary and you might enjoy that. But I think it's mostly placebo, where people think that the enemy resolver is shit or something. But in reality, they would have just missed the same if they wouldn't have moved at all. So I think that's just that. So there might be a real reason to why jitter is better than just backwards, but that's my experience at least. If you want to have a real if you want to have a real end aim that dodges bullets if enemies are shooting head, that is anti-brute force. Now, this is a hard topic because anti-brute force is just not, you do that and then boom, you dodge all the bullets. It's highly dependent on which cheat you're playing against, because each cheat has a different pattern of how it's gonna try to shoot your head. So, for example, this is, it's a pure example. Let's say one tap goes from the left side to the right side, so it shoots the very left, then it shoots a couple degrees left, then it shoots center, a couple degrees right, all the way right, and then it goes from left again. And so that just continues, right? But for example, Skeet could be doing the exact opposite, where it goes from right to left, and so on and so forth. So brute force anti-aims are kind of hit or miss, where sometimes they work pretty good, and sometimes they work pretty shit depending on who you're playing against, and so on and so forth. But generally speaking, if you just have your delta a little bit lower than the maximum, you probably dodge at least one bullet most of the time. And if you didn't kill him by that, you were probably the issue. Okay, so that concludes the first video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Let me know in the comment section below why you think this video was horrible. And I'm just gonna delete your comments if you say anything bad, because I cannot take any criticism. Thanks for watching. See you guys in the next one. Bye. Freestand also sometimes believe that putting your head sideways is a better option than going sideways. Put your head sideways than it is sideways. What the fuck? Who the fuck wrote this piece of shit? Molly!